Okay, as from next week, because it appeared from the poll that I posted on WhatsApp, it appeared that most students, the majority of the students, no, not the majority didn't respond to the poll, but of those that responded, most students prefer uh, or not, or yes, prefer Tuesday. Apparently, there is a clash on Thursdays. Please keep your mics muted. Seems there's a clash on Thursdays. So, as from next week, classes will shift to Tuesdays between 1 and 2. If you cannot attend a particular lecture, classes are recorded and the recordings uploaded on YouTube. Don't know if you've already found them on YouTube, managed to watch some of them. I record the class and literally share the meeting recording on YouTube. Easy to find. Just search for Mariette Hanekom NAS Law Lectures, and they are all there. I use the same channel for company law. So just ignore the company law lectures. Yours are clearly indicated traffic and transportation law. You, of course, feel free to watch the company law classes if you want to. But the TTL lectures are there. Okay, so moving on then, last week we looked at some international legal instruments that impact on our traffic and transportation regime in Namibia. Then we looked at the Geneva Protocol specifically. You saw that our traffic and transportation laws essentially come from the Geneva Protocol. When our legislative, our legal advice, government legal advisors sat down to start writing the Road Traffic and Transportation Act, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, because the wheel already existed. So our transportation legislation is in line with international regulations. Then I also mentioned in last week's class that a particular international legal instrument which impacts on our traffic and transportation in Namibia is the SADC protocol. And I mentioned at the time that we will have a separate lecture on the SADC protocol. So that is where we are today. At Unit 3, we are going to look at the SADC protocol. So can anybody quickly tell me what does SADC stand for? Nobody.
Southern African Development Community.
Southern African Development Community. Thank you, Mr. Vatileni. Not a difficult legal question, common sense. You should know that. We are part of the Southern African Development Community, SADC. Okay, let me just share my screen quickly. Okay, so just lesson protocol. While I'm teaching, I'm focusing on the window where I have my slides, not on the window where the class is. So I cannot see you. If you have a question, you raise your hand. I will not see you. If you do have a question, please feel free to interrupt me. But please just speak up. Just interrupt me, or otherwise put your question in the chat box. Okay, so looking today then at the SADC protocol on transport, communications, and meteorology. As you have learned last week, a written agreement between two independent countries, between two sovereign states, is known as a protocol. Is a treaty. A treaty is a written agreement between two or more countries. It can be bilateral, two countries, multilateral, more than three or more. Now, the SADC member states enter into treaties, except SADC refers to them as protocols, but it is just another name for an international agreement between SADC member states. So this is not for examination, for assessment purposes, but just because it fits into the SADC protocol on transportation relates to this. The mission of SADC is to promote sustainable and equitable economic growth and socio-economic development through efficient, productive systems, deeper cooperation, and integration, good governance, and durable peace and security, so that the region emerges as a competitive and effective player in international relations and the world economy. So these are all the member states in the region working together to promote sustainable and equitable economic growth. And with economic growth comes socio-economic development. So that is why SADC was formed, the mission of SADC as such. Now, just think for yourself for a moment. If we go back to this mission, how does transportation fit into the picture? What role does transportation play in achieving this mission, in promoting sustainable and equitable economic growth and socio-economic development? Somebody going to try giving me an answer there? It's not a right or wrong question. It's not a heavy, difficult legal question. It's a common sense question, like most of this entire course is common sense. What role does transportation play in achieving the mission of SADC?
Miss, can I try?
Of course, please do, Mr. Johannes.
Okay, when countries are exporting and importing, so it leads to economic growth through transportation.
Absolutely, Mr. Johannes. You're 100% correct. You can go further than that. Transportation, you cannot. The economy is dependent on transportation. Import, not only import and export, as you noticed, but also internally. I don't think you people realize what incredibly important field you are studying towards, how important transportation is. The mission of SADC, socio-economic development. What is the purpose of having the best schools in the world if there are not roads to get the children to those schools? Transportation is absolutely integral, as Mr. Johannes mentioned, in economic growth and development. There cannot be economic growth and development without transportation. So what is the role of transportation in attaining the mission of SADC? It's integral, it's vital. SADC will not obtain these missions if it didn't look after its transportation systems. And of course they know this, they are aware of this, which is why they have a whole ass protocol, an international agreement between the member states with regard to transportation. So I've already mentioned this. What are protocols? Protocols are agreements between the member states on various issues, codes of procedure and practice, agreements how to do things. These protocols are based on two integral principles. Firstly, the individuality of sovereign states. SADC does not aim to tell the member states how to run their countries. It realizes that Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Angola, Democratic Republic of Congo, all of those are independent countries, sovereign states. They decide how they want to run their affairs, and SADC isn't going to interfere with that. But on the other hand, in order to achieve the mission, there must be cooperation. And the policies need to be coordinated. The different member states' policies need to be coordinated to the mutual advantage of the member states. And in order to achieve this coordination, it enters into protocols. These are treaties, legally binding documents, committing member states to the objectives and specific procedures stated therein. So when Namibia signed the SADC protocol on transportation, it became legally bound to do what is stated therein, to work towards its objectives, to abide with the specific procedures laid down. So the SADC protocol on transportation, communications, and meteorology is a lengthy document. The original document has been uploaded on e-learning for you. It is there if you want to look at it. You do not need to study the original document. Whatever I've discussed in Unit 3 in the notes is sufficient. But I did give it there for you if you want to look at it for information purposes. Now, it's a protocol on transportation, communications, and meteorology. Obviously, we only look at the transportation part. The communications and meteorology, although important, does not concern our field of study. It is structured in the following manner. This is just for the purpose of making you understand it better. I'm not going to assess you on the structure. It starts off with a preamble, which is a general introduction. Then it contains certain definitions. Then it refers to the general, or discusses the general objective of the protocol and the strategic goals of the protocol. And then there are separate chapters on integrated transport, road infrastructure, road transport, and road traffic. So the preamble is an introduction. It's not actually part of the contract itself. It is literally an introduction to the contract. It sets out and discusses the philosophy behind this protocol. Why did the member states decide to enter into this protocol? So in terms of the protocol, transport, communications, and meteorology. Systems have a regional and global character. They are not limited, so it recognizes the regional and global character of these systems, recognizes that they are not confined to one country on its own. Further recognizes that transportation and communications and meteorology are essential prerequisites for economic growth and development, the improvement of the quality of life in member states, and for social interaction between the persons within SADC. So what Mr. Johannes said previously, he referred specifically to import and export. That is part of it. Economic growth. You cannot have economic growth if you do not have proper transportation systems. You cannot improve the quality of life in this region if you do not have proper transportation systems. There cannot be proper social interaction between the persons living in the region if there are no proper transportation systems. It further recognizes that transportation systems are assets of significant strategic value. They cost money. They are valuable. Because of the strategic value, they have to be looked after. And that there is a collective benefit. So all the member states can benefit if the transportation systems within the region are integrated and they can benefit from cooperating with each other. So that is the philosophy underlying the SADC protocol. Then it moves on to give certain definitions. Now, why do laws have definitions? When we move on to study the Road Traffic and Transportation Act, which we study in detail, you will also see that the Road Traffic and Transportation Act also starts off with definitions. Why do laws have definitions? Purpose of definitions in a legal instrument is to clarify the precise meaning of certain words and phrases within the context of a particular document. Sometimes words are used in a context in a particular document which is not identical to the ordinary dictionary meaning. Or if you look it up in a dictionary, it could give you a number of different meanings. But within this particular law, it has a specific meaning. So the laws contain definitions to make sure that everybody who uses this law, who reads this law, attaches the same meaning to the words, has the same understanding of these particular words. So we're not studying all the definitions. I have just selected a few for you from the protocol, but the definitions that are contained in the notes are important. You have to know them. You will be assessed on them. So the first one then is a corridor. I have just said the definitions are there to clarify the precise meaning of words in the context of the document. Now, if you were to Google the meaning of the word corridor, it's going to tell you a corridor is a long passage in a house or a building that has rooms leading from it, which is absolutely correct. A corridor is a long passage that has rooms leading for it, but that is not what a corridor is within the context of transportation, in the context of the SADC protocol. A A corridor, in terms of the protocol, is a major regional transportation route along which a significant proportion of member states' regional and international imports and exports are carried by various modes of transport. International important points to take from that definition. It's a transportation route, an important transportation route, a significant part of regional and international transports, of imports and exports, are carried along that route. And then, very important, carried by various modes of transport. A corridor is not a highway. One of our most important corridors that traverse Namibia is the Trans-Kalahari Corridor. But sometimes we refer to it as the Trans-Kalahari Highway. That is wrong. The Trans-Kalahari Highway is merely a part of the Trans-Kalahari Corridor. A corridor is not a road. A corridor is a transportation route used by various modes of transport. Remember that. Then there are 4 important corridors that traverse Namibia. They are in the notes. I'm not going to read that to you. Make sure you know what their names are. Make sure you know what their names are and from where to where do they travel, which major cities or areas do they connect. Trans-Kalahari, for example, from Walvis Bay through Botswana to Gauteng in South Africa. You need to know that. The next definitions are that of intermodal transport and multimodal transport. Now, can I just, because these definitions are lengthy, can I just warn you, or warn you, whatever the word is. I am not going to ask you to memorize these definitions. I am definitely not. You need to understand these definitions. And the important thing is, as I say, not to memorize, but to understand. And if I ask you what is the difference between intermodal transport and multimodal transport, which I am going to ask you, do not give me 2 definitions. If you only give me the definition of intermodal and the definition of multimodal, you will get no marks. If I'm asking you what the difference is, then you need to specify to me what the difference is. And if you were to look at these 2 definitions carefully, at first glance, they sound very different, but they're not. Let's just briefly compare them. Intermodal, transport of goods by several modes. Multimodal, carriage of goods by at least 2 different modes of transport. That's not different, that's the same. They both involve carriage of goods, transport of goods by 2 or more different modes. I'm not going to compare them further, but you can, okay, let's just make one more point. From one intermodal, from one point or port of origin to a final port. Multimodal, from a place in one country to a place designated for delivery in a different country. So from A to B. Not a difference, a similarity. So what is the difference between intermodal transport and multimodal transport. The difference between intermodal and multimodal lies in the question of who assumes liability for the transport. In intermodal transport, one of the carriers organize it without assuming liability for the entire transport. So in intermodal transport, every individual carrier is liable for their part of the route. Multimodal, on the basis of a multimodal transport contract. So multimodal, one carrier assumes liability for the entire trip. Intermodal, different carriers are liable for their sections of the route. Some YouTube links for you there about intermodal and multimodal if you want to go and watch some videos on that. Next, the next definitions: road traffic and road transport. Road transport management stands on its own. Road transport management is self-explanatory. It is the management of road transport. Road traffic and road transport, you also need to distinguish between. Road traffic, the flow of traffic and interaction between pedestrians, drivers, and vehicles on the road network. Road transport, conveyance of passengers and freight on the road network between origins and destinations by means of road transport vehicles. So if you look at these two definitions, what is the difference between them? Road transport refers to road passengers and freight, road transport vehicles. Road traffic, flow of traffic and interaction between pedestrians, drivers, and vehicles. So road traffic is wider. Road transport refers only to the vehicles, to the cars, whereas road traffic refers to all the users of the road. So once again, if I'm asking you, what is the difference between road traffic and road transport? I don't want you to have memorized two definitions. I need you to tell me that the difference between road traffic and road transport is that road traffic is a wider concept. It refers to all users of the road, whereas road transport refers only to road transport vehicles. Road transport management, management of road transport. That's fairly self-explanatory. So the general objective, sorry for jumping around, the general objective of the SADC protocol. There's a general objective, what it sets out to achieve, and then a number of strategic goals. These strategic goals have to be met in order to attain the general objective. The strategic goals support the general objective. So what is the general objective? Establish transport systems which provide efficient, cost-effective, and fully integrated infrastructure and operations which best meet the needs of customers, promote economic and social development while being environmentally and economically sustainable. So that is the general objective, to provide for efficient and cost-effective, fully integrated infrastructure and operations which meet the needs of customers and promote economic and social development while being environmentally and economically sustainable. What you need to do is take this general objective and compare it with a preamble and see whereas the preamble is the broad philosophy, the general objective is now narrowing it down. So you've got the broad reason, the philosophy, why do we need this protocol? And then what do we want to achieve with this protocol, the general objective? Please rewrite this in your own words so that you can remember it. Do not memorize it. Rephrase it using your own words. Now, in order to achieve this general objective, there are 5 strategic goals. You need to know these strategic goals. You need to be able to discuss them. So the strategic goals, number 1, the integration of regional transport networks by way of compatible policies and legislation. The elimination and reduction of impediments to the movement of persons, etc., between member states. Broad-based investment to develop viable strategic transport infrastructure. The optimal utilization of public and private resources and the effective allocation of existing scarce resources, and fostering regional development by strategic partnerships. So the purpose of the preamble, once again, these are the strategic goals that it sets out to achieve. If these goals have been achieved, it will meet the general objective. Let's just quickly look. The general objective: fully integrated infrastructure and operations. So integration of regional transport networks, elimination of impediments of movement so that they can be integrated. It's easier to move from one country to another. Promote economic and social development. So investment to develop infrastructure. Optimal, the best possible use of resources for the purpose of development. So these strategic goals don't stand on their own. They are intertwined. They echo the objective. And also, if we can quickly go back to the preamble. Sorry. The preamble recognizes that transport systems are a prerequisite for economic growth. See, there we have it again. For the improvement of life, there we have it again. It recognizes that your transportation systems are assets of strategic value. Assets of strategic value. There we are. Optimal utilization of these resources of strategic value, development by way of strategic partnerships. So see the overlaps. Broad-based investment to develop infrastructure. So the preamble, the general objective, and the strategic goals don't stand on their own. They support each other. Please recognize that as such. Chapter 3 then refers to integrated transport. What is integrated transport? Integrated transport aims at establishing efficient, reliable regional transportation systems, integrating all modes of transport to facilitate travel between the member states. Let's just go back. You have your strategic goals, and now it's broken down even further, as in what must the member states do, the action part, in order to achieve these goals. So the goal is integration of regional transport networks. The action item is to establish reliable transportation systems integrating all modes of transport. See, so do you see the repetition? Are you picking up on the repetition? The strategic goal is elimination or reduction of impediments of movement between member states. What are the action items? That the right of freedom of transport for persons. The strategic goal. Broad-based investment to develop viable strategic transport. That is the goal. What is the action item? That there must be a regional approach to infrastructure development and maintenance. It doesn't help that Namibia has a wonderful road leading up to the Botswana border, and then from Botswana onwards, there's no road. There must be a regional approach. It must be integrated. You must be able to travel easily from the one country to the other. Reduction of issues that hinder cross-border transit must be easier to cross from one country to another. Harmonization of domestic legislation. The laws in Namibia must be similar to the laws in South Africa, to the laws in Botswana, to the laws in Zambia. Because if laws are similar, it's easier for people to travel from the one country to the other. Simplified procedures and documentation for the movement of cargo, so that it's easier to move from one country to the other. If you actually look at those bullet points, you'll see they're fairly repetitive. How do we integrate transport in order to achieve the strategic goal? Chapter 4, you don't need to remember the chapter numbers. Chapter 4 then zooms in specifically on road infrastructure. Preamble already referred to infrastructure. It said these are assets of great strategic value. Chapter 4, what must the member countries do with regard to road infrastructure? Purpose of this is to ensure and sustain the development of adequate roads to support regional socio-economic growth. We're back to what Mr. Johannes said. You cannot have social economic growth without adequate roads. Chapter 4 focuses then on road infrastructure, promotes the establishment and maintenance of the regional trunk road network, RTRN, Regional Trunk Road Network, which provides access to major centers within the region, access between ports of entry between member states and harbors. And we might be doing road traffic and transportation, but transportation is not only trucks and cars, various modes of transportation. Proper regional trunk road network will minimize the total road transport costs, good roads, less damage to vehicles, faster traveling time, cost is minimized. They need to be looked after, the assets need to be preserved. And of course, it's not just about roads. The road traffic, regional trunk road network must also be developed in a manner which minimizes the detrimental impact of transportation on the environment. Road Chapter 4 further provides that each member state must establish an autonomous, an independent, and accountable national roads authority with the responsibility to manage its roads on a national basis. These things that we want to achieve, there needs to be somebody appointed that is going to be doing this job. So every country, every sovereign nation must have its own national authority that is in charge of that. In Namibia, that authority is the Namibian Roads Authority. They also all work together by way of the Association of Southern African National Roads Agencies, also known as ASANRA. Road transport, Chapter 5 deals with road transport. Let's refresh our memories. What is road transport? Road transport, the conveyance of passengers and freight on the road network between origins and destinations by means of road transport vehicles. How do we promote road transport? There must be an unimpeded flow of goods and passengers between member states. We must promote a strong and competitive commercial road transport industry, which provides effective transport services to consumers. Road transport policy must be harmonized between the member states. And member states must be encouraged to enter into standardized bilateral and multilateral agreements. We saw what bilateral and multilateral agreements are in last week's lecture. Countries are encouraged to enter standardized. So the agreement between Namibia and South Africa is similar to the agreement between Namibia and Botswana, or between Botswana and Zambia. When we start zooming in on the Road Traffic and Transportation Act, when we talk about cross-border transport, we're going to be getting back to this issue of bilateral and multilateral agreements. So to promote road transport and the unimpeded flow of goods and passengers between member states, our laws and transport policies must be harmonized, and countries enter into agreements with each other. Then road traffic. Go back to our definition of road traffic. Road traffic, the flow of traffic and the interaction between pedestrians, drivers, and vehicles on the road network. So a broader concept. What does the protocol say about road traffic? Purpose of the provisions of the protocol with regarding road traffic is to promote safety, acceptable levels of safety, order, and mobility on the road, to protect the environment and infrastructures. Can you see, people, the repetition? These aren't separate chapters. They interlock, they repeat each other. And to promote a harmonized regional road traffic policy by way of harmonized road traffic and safety legislation, harmonized control measures in respect of vehicles, drivers, and traffic operations, and harmonized implementation of relevant technical standards. You will understand why that is important to promote this harmonized road traffic that the protocol is looking for. Efficient, cost-effective, and fully fully integrated infrastructure and operations. The laws must be the same. Driver who has got a Namibian driver's license, who's qualified to drive a vehicle in Namibia, is also qualified to drive a vehicle in Botswana. Vehicle safety standards, roadworthy standards that apply in Namibia also apply in South Africa. Okay, so that is what you need to know and understand about the SADC protocol. Apart from the definitions that you need to study, the rest of the protocol will be assessed by way of discussion questions, where you need to know the background, you need to be able to discuss it and give your own opinion and your own application. But I will not expect too much memorization. You don't need to memorize all these bullet points. You need to understand them. Please also go to the actual notes and read through that. Okay, any questions?
Miss, I only have a question on the difference between intermodal and multimodal transport there. Can you please just elaborate more on the difference and then similarity?
Okay, the difference, I'm not going to elaborate on the similarities because I'm not going to ask you where are they similar. I need you to understand how do they differ. So, because they are similar in the sense that they both refer to transport from one place to a final destination, so from A to B, by way of using at least two different modes of transport. That's where they are similar. Where the difference comes in is the liability for each of these modes of transport. Let's say goods are delivered in Walfish Bay. They are sent from Cape Town Harbour, to Walfish Bay in a boat. So they come from Cape Town Harbour to Walfish Bay Harbour in a boat. Then they are offloaded from the boat and put in a truck and transported by road to Windhoek, where they are taken to the airport and loaded on an aeroplane to be taken overseas. So that's three different modes of transport. There's ship, there's road, there's air. Now, the liability, what I'm referring to is if something goes wrong, if these goods are damaged, who is responsible to pay the damage? That's what I mean by liability. Now, with intermodal transport, if the goods get damaged on the ship, it's the shipping company that has to pay. If they get damaged while they're on the truck, it's the truck company that has to pay. And if they get damaged while they're on the plane, it's the air company, the air transport company, whatever it's called, that has to pay. Multimodal, however, the chap that is in Europe, and once these stuff brought from Cape Town enters into an agreement with a transportation company who arranges all of this. They arrange the boat, they subcontract, they arrange for the boat, they arrange with the trucking company, they arrange with the air company. But if something goes wrong, then it's the overall person who organized this transport, the overall transportation company, which has to pay, irrespective of whether the damage was on the boat, on the road, or on the aeroplane. So intermodal, every individual carrier is liable. Multimodal, there's one company that is liable for the entire trip. You have that now, Mr. Philippus, Mr. Johannes?
Yes, Miss. Thanks.
Okay, lovely. Okay, it's 2:00. Those of you that work need to get back to work. Thank you for attending the class. Recording will be uploaded onto YouTube. There is a long weekend ahead. Tomorrow is institutional holiday. Those of you that are employed probably don't have a holiday, but at least there's Monday where there is also a public holiday. If you are traveling, please stay safe. And we will have a class then next week and Tuesday. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.